Hello, friends. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, what it's doing in the world, how it's reflected in the world overall, and how it affects you personally in the upcoming week. So, if anyone would like to contact me for readings, some of you have actually, and it's been really delightful to meet you and talk with you and go over your charts. Or for lessons, please do contact me at 508 525 0001. And let's see now, I will have a guest next weekend. This weekend we have planned it, but circumstances didn't allow us to get together, and it wasn't just it was on both of our parts, to be truthful with you. So essentially, I will have a guest next weekend. It won't be on this particular show. It'll be on another broadcast. But I promise next weekend. So I'd like to talk with you today also, just to catch myself. Also, if you'd like to talk with me or message me, the number to contact me at is 508 525 0001. Again, that's 508 525 0001. You can also email me at Gary Gomes G. That's my name and the letter G all run together. Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. I have other email addresses, but that's the one you're most likely to find me. You can also look me up online. The website is a little bit the Northeast Institute of Vedic Astrology and Studies website and the Crystal Expectations website. You can contact me at either of those, but it's a little bit, just trying to think of a good way to put it. It's a little awkward for me to communicate through those, or else you can look me up on Facebook or on Instagram or on X. So, any of those mechanisms, you can get in touch with me personally, but the most direct way is to text me or call me at 508 525 0001. All right. So, let's go into the week that we've been experiencing. Actually, I was going to talk about P. Diddy, but I just think I may wait until the end of the month to talk about that, the P. Diddy situation, and focus more on what's going on, uh, just a little bit on the politics of what's going on right now, both nationally and internationally. And so let's see if I can share the screen. All right, so this is not the chart we're looking for. Sorry about that. All right, so we're going to have now a chart. Okay, so let's see now. All right, so I don't think this is share. I don't think this is sharing just yet. So let me see if I can get this back. Stop the share and get a share up. All right, so this one is sharing. The other one may have shared, but that was an unfortunate accident on my part. Um, I've never spoken about it. This is something I always like to introduce a little bit of an additional element into the chart, and so essentially, so this is sort of like an educational aspect of our program. And also, before I go any further, please subscribe like, share, comment. We're subscriber mark. So I appreciate that, all you who've hung in so far and stuck all the way to the end. And I value you all. We're not in the thousands. I hope to improve that soon, but we're close to 1,000. So um, this is what I have. The arrow under is what's called a Pushkar Navamsha. Pushkar Navamshas are supposed to be really, really important in the chart. And if we have a Pushkar Navamsha position, or Pushkar planetary position, that particular aspect of the chart gets a lot of weight. So if you look carefully at this, you see we have the Upapada Lagna is uh, very strong. The Arudapada Lagna is very strong. And the Sri Lagna is very strong. Uranus and Pluto are very strong in the chart, but again, I don't use those all that much. In some ways, it doesn't matter because we're seeing the same phenomena happening through uh, also, at least from the chart. Uh, the Sri Lagna is connected with prosperity, so this will bring unexpected gains this week, especially on the home front, just for everybody. The Upapada Lagna actually puts a large focus on relationships. Uranus being in that particular position, although I don't like to use Uranus, not because I have anything against it, but because I think it's redundant to Rahu and Ketu. Uh, Uranus, right now, by transit, is in the 12th house. So you'll see a lot of overturns in the traditional way of doing things. We're seeing it happening in the government. And also, at least from the chart, Pluto I have to find out where Pluto is. I'm sorry. Pluto is at 8 degrees, 7 minutes of Capricorn. Uranus is at 29 degrees of Aries. So there can be some upsets from friends or some unexpected behavior from friends, but also Pluto being in Capricorn can mean some unexpected twists or turns in the financial markets over the next week. So the push card navamshas are something that I actually should pay more attention to because those are those are considered auspicious points in the chart or good points in the chart. And so even though Uranus and Pluto are inherently disruptive planets, they'll produce some good results. They'll be very strong, very forceful. They'll produce some needed changes. And the Upapada Lagna essentially will produce some increased attention on relationship life. That'll be a big focus. Now, the interesting thing of it is, it's in the same sign with Sun and Mercury over here. And I think that that combination tends to put a lot of focus on relationships anyway, or what's going on behind the scenes in relationships. But, and Urudapada Lagna is, or the Urudapada is in, I need to find that. Urudapada is in Leo, so there can be some unexpected gains from this particular combination. Okay, so I think that this kind of a combination is actually very good for you overall. You have, people have unexpected or unanticipated relationship involvements. I've actually seen that happen in some charts. The other thing is the Rahu Venus conjunction up here. This is really important. And the reason I'm saying that is because Rahu tends to attract us to, it tends to make us ambitious or it gives unexpected relationship opportunities. And Venus right now is exalted in the sign. So it depends on if you're in a stage in your life in which you're looking for somebody, but you'll get unexpected surprises from people who you hadn't considered as potential relationship partners, or just surprises from people who would like you a lot or tend to think very highly of you. This is especially true if you have a really strong Venus in your chart. People born around October, uh, February, March, and sometimes May often have a strong Venus in their chart or a prominent Venus in their chart. And that's mainly because Venus will be in October, roughly. This isn't true all the time, but roughly October will be in Libra, its own sign. Uh, Even if it's in Virgo, it's a debilitated sign, it tends to underscore Venus's importance in your life. And it can give a lot of material possessions, but not a lot of emotional happiness. Um, but and the winter months, so essentially right now Aquarius, um, basically when Venus is exalted, and it will be exalted for a couple of months, essentially this will open up romantic opportunities. Now they may be unexpected. Some of them may be a bit unrealistic, if I'm totally honest with you. But that Rahu Venus conjunction is very strong for new business partnerships, new relationship opportunities, and also just unexpected opportunities to partner with other people, not necessarily just romantically, but in business, in commerce, even in spiritual pursuits. So if you're a creative individual, this is going to be a really good time for you. And as a matter of fact, that April 15th conjunction that I told you about actually has Venus exalted and retrograde in the same sign. So that could spell some upsets or some changes in partnerships, even relationship life around that time. Okay, so for those of you who like your relationship and don't want to abandon your current relationship, um, that time will be rather challenging. For those of you who don't like your current relationship or feel unfulfilled by it, you'll have opportunities to get involved with other people. And so that'll be interesting. For those of you who are lonely, you'll have chances to get involved with people who are more compatible. And so we're talking about May, the May Venus transit in birth charts is normally more materially inclined. Venus in Libra is more um, commercially or exchange inclined. So these people always want to form partnerships. But the Venus in Taurus, these people are always more interested um, in financial growth or financial expansion. And the Venus in Pisces, they're more interested in spiritual fulfillment and happiness, emotional happiness. Um, the thing that makes it not quite so sexual is that Mars isn't involved in this particular transit. So Mars will be over here in this sign in April. So one, two. So it won't really aspect. Let me just see now. One, two, three. So Mars really won't be involved in this Venus aspect. So it's not really a passionate time, although romance can blossom, essentially feelings of like meeting a people and really feeling a strong emotional connection with them will blossom. So in some ways, it's um, less sexual than a Venus-Mars combination would be, where you feel compelled to um, engage in some kind of a sexual relationship, although this can occur when Venus is with Rahu, but there'll also be blocks or obstacles to fulfilling that until after July. Okay, so this is just to keep you in mind. This is almost like a tease, almost like the a borderline relationship that'll come in. And like I said, if you value a peaceful household, what could happen to you could happen to your spouse. This will be a time when it'll be really easy to get attracted to uh, people that could ruin your relationship. So just be mindful of that. Um, but again, like I said, it is a really interesting combination because it does tend to give some ambiguity of feelings. Also, Venus and Jupiter are in mutual exchange. They're in what's called a parivartana yoga. That literally is a mutual exchange yoga. So it'll be somewhat good for finances, but just be careful because Venus in this sign is a little bit overly optimistic. So it can make a person, and especially with Rahu, it can make a person invest in things that are really a little bit risky or tricky, or they look a lot better than they actually are. So I would advise caution in investment opportunities, especially around the next 3 to 4 months. So Saturn is, so with this chart, we have Mars in the first house. Mars is in Gemini. Again, that can produce some feelings of infidelity in relationship because Mars is in Gemini. Mars acts quickly. Moon is there. Moon is a sensual planet. So there's an emotional combination right now. This only lasts for about another day. So this is not really such a big deal. But basically, I think whenever I've seen combinations like this, uh, it's really easy to act impulsively in a relationship matter. Mars aspects Ketu, so people will be angrier than normal. We've seen that with what's been happening with the Democratic Party trying to storm the Department of Education. I actually found that really interesting because I didn't know what they were hoping to do if they actually got in. And it is a public institution and they are answerable to Congress. But excuse me, let, let me just backtrack for a second. The secretaries or the actual departments that administer the funds are actually answerable to the executive branch. Congress allocates the money, so they have the power of the purse strings. But there is also a thing. So I'm going to wander into the USAID programs in a second. Uh, but so Congress certainly does have the right of review. I don't know if they have the right of storming into a federal office, um, which is part of the administrative branch of government. So I think that's why the security guard was probably justified in keeping them out. Um, Mars K2 aspect, so that Mars K2 aspect is going to be there for quite a while, for at least another month or so. And I think that a lot of this activity, one of the interesting things I've always seen when Venus and Rahu or Jupiter and Rahu get together is that all kinds of secrets come spilling out. And that seems to be what's happening right now. So we're finding out about all kinds of expenditures being made and a lot of uh, things that were deemed to be untouchable are being touched very aggressively by people. This is true not only in the United States, this is also true in places like England where um, there is a government scandal about the current prime minister being involved in violating a lockdown, which got Boris Johnson thrown out of office. Uh, but as it wasn't a party. It was more of an individual counseling session that he had to take. It was to speak. It was a speech coach he met with. But I think, and again, the German government has had some problems. Um, Definitely, we've spoken about that for a while. The Canadian government is having some problems still. Mexican government is being forced to do things it really doesn't want to. A lot of governments around the world are being forced to do things they really don't want to. So I think that this is kind of an interesting period. Um, and I think overall, you will see a lot of before Venus gets out of Pisces, which will be sometime in, I believe it's in May because it's going to go retrograde. You'll see a lot more of this kind of scraping back and forth between Venus and Saturn and Rahu. Uh, Saturn hits Pisces, which will be the end of the United States 7.5 year period of Saturn on March 29th or thereabouts. And so it depends. I'm just saying thereabouts because it depends on which measurement you're using. And basically, uh, so you'll see a lot of disruption. I would tend to say this is like a precursor for a lot of street action, maybe even violent protests, which were being threatened. Uh, I don't want to say violent protests, but protests were being threatened. Uh, so I don't want to prejudice the case even more. Protests were being threatened, and everybody is stirred up about this because uh, we have somebody who's outside the system, that's Rahu, questioning expenditures, which is a Venus activity, especially for social programs, but also USAID is partially connected with promoting a positive image of the United States, but it's also been involved in what's called regime change. So essentially what they do is they go into a country, disrupt it a little bit, and but the idea is to build a popular support for um, a new government, a more U.S. friendly government, uh, etc. Um, so, so it is actually um, protecting our interests, but it's also been responsible for a lot of the wars in the United States. Not directly responsible, but it's encouraged a lot of the domestic instability the countries have had, which have thrown existing leaders out of power. Now, depending on your position, you may argue that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not saying it's inherently a bad thing, but uh, I think the more destabilized the world becomes, the more there is a risk of pushing one government too far or pushing through crackdowns a little bit too aggressively. So this is useful to know. One thing that did strike me is that the U.S. attorneys who essentially work for the administrative branch have come out and said that they're going to look and see whether or not the release of the people who've been doing the investigation for Doge, whether or not those people's rights have been violated because they've been exposed, their names have been exposed. So actually we saw something similar, but not identical in the Bush administration when you had, oh gosh, there was a woman who was a spy in in South Africa, and the Bush administration released her information, and because her husband was opposed to um, U.S. policy, um, so so essentially what they did, and this was the entire basis of a lot of the questioning around Snowden that Tulsi Gabbard encountered. So I think that, and there are legitimate, so to be fair, I don't want to bore you too much with politics. There are legitimate concerns as to whether or not, as to who has access to uh, IRS records or Social Security numbers. So that'll be determined in a court later on this week. My expectation is, because of Saturn's aspect, the Doge people will get limited access to those records, but they will get access. Okay. So I don't think this ends the investigation by any stretch of the imagination, because this is where um, they can find out uh, which bank accounts have been affected by some of these um, policies that have been implemented. And I think it's my mind, it's not an attack on freedom to question where bureaucrats have been spending money or where programs have been spending money. Uh, but that's to my mind. You may feel differently. You may feel like, you know, Congress has appropriated this money. It's being spent where they want it to be spent, and that's it. That's what the people wanted. Um, but on the other hand, a lot of folks seemed, even in the Senate, even in the House, seemed unaware of where some of the USAID money was being spent. So so this is, a lot of this is Rahu Venus. Okay, a lot of this is Rahu Venus and Jupiter. So, and again, um, I have nothing against a particular program if it helps advance the interests of the United States, but there are open questions about some of these programs that have been funded. It doesn't mean they're bad, and we are having what I would call a slew of lies because of Mars Mercury aspect in this chart. Just it's just it's just astonishing to me whenever we have the Mars Mercury aspect, how much um, there's an attempt to cover up or reframe the dialogue. And this is happening around the world. This is not just happening in the United States. This is happening around the world. And this particular aspect will not go away anytime soon, because so Mercury is going to move into Aquarius within a few days, but Mars will move into Cancer. They'll still show, uh, so we'll have like maybe around maybe about a week or so of honesty, and then all of a sudden there'll be this massive effort to hide or mislead people. And like I said, it's not only on the Democratic side, It's also on the Republican side, if I'm totally honest about it. But I think in this particular case, because of the nature of the parties, one of the reasons we're coming out so much with uh, so many of the cases are coming out having to do with uh, sexual orientation or transgender issues is mainly because Venus is with Rahu. And that combination, so that combination of sexuality um, and multiple genders is very much a Venus issue. So, but the Rahu here is unusual or unconforming, uh, you know, unconforming sexual, non-traditionally conforming sexual roles. Let's put it that way. And so like I said, it's just fascinating to see the way the chart's reflecting what's going on in the world right now. Um, so and a lot of the activities are connected with the arts, which is again like another Venus activity, crafts, which is a Venus activity, et cetera, et cetera. And also viruses, which, believe it or not, medicine falls, allopathic medicine falls under the jurisdiction of Venus as well. There are other planets involved, obviously, but Venus has that particular function in the Vedic chart. So again, we'll see some scandals connected with celebrities because the Venus Rahu, especially people in Hollywood, and some of them will actually experience rapid declines in their career around, I would say, around between April and June of this year. So I think this is a really interesting time to keep an eye on the news and an eye on finances. Like I said, I'm a little bit leery of financial over optimism when we see this kind of a combination right here, where Saturn's about to move into the same sign as Venus, and Venus is with Rahu, which can give unrealistic aspirations. So we'll see what happens. But just overall, just keep in mind that Saturn is in the ninth house in this chart. So that indicates heavy judgment on governors or leaders. And Rahu and Venus indicates a lot of details being exposed rather quickly. So this is really an interesting time to look at this. And also some judgments being made because of that. Okay. If we look down at the Navamsha chart just really, really quickly, Venus is debilitated in this chart. It's not really well placed. There's a cancellation of debilitation because Venus is with Mercury. Mercury's in its exalted sign. Um, and let's see now. Yeah, so that cancels the debilitation, but that also means that there's going to be more critical analysis of expenditure patterns. And Venus rules the 12th house in this chart. That's the house of expenses. So this is going to continue on at least for the next few months, and you'll see a lot of changes brought to bear. I'm not sure that the Trump administration is going to win every court case. I'm not sure they should, but certainly in terms of investigating where money is going, I think they should. All right, so let's go to how it's going to affect you as an individual over the next week. So Aries is in the first house lords in the third house along with the moon. So it's going to give you strong desire to fulfill your ambitions, especially connected with property. Jupiter's in the second house, good gain of income for the sign. So that's good relief. And also it will be spent on things which are a little bit frivolous, but also necessary. Okay. So I think this is actually one of the few times I can see this sign and say, well, so you want to do a home improvement? Yeah, go ahead and do it because it'll pay off in the long run. Um, K2's in the sixth house. Again, we have to watch out for illnesses for the sign. That's going to be true until really July. But but financial growth should be a prominent factor in this chart. Um, for Venus is located in the seventh house, so relationship partners will be urging you to spend more money or trying to spend more money. Saturn's in the 11th, slow gain. Career-wise, though, this sign looks very, very good. So slow gain of wealth, but career-wise, it looks pretty solid and safe. But you do have to be aware of bosses or coworkers essentially lying to you or misrepresenting things. But Taurus has Jupiter in the first house, Mars in the second. So this makes this sign very optimistic. Mars in the second makes it a little bit contentious and it makes it feel like things are a little bit out of control. Ketu's in the fifth. There is some worry about children from this sign. But also there'll be some financial gains connected with this sign. The Varnata Lagna, this sign will be spending a lot of time with its relationship partner and with business partners. Sun and Mercury are in the ninth house, so actually relationship partners should give the sign some additional luck. Um, 10th house Lord has Saturn in it, so there should be increased command and very good financial gains for Taurus. This is May 15th to June 15th over the next few weeks. For Gemini, Gemini has Mars and Moon in the first house, so it seems like relationship partners are a little bit uncaring or a little bit difficult to deal with. You'll feel like you're doing everything on your own. There's some worry about public humiliation or removal of status, but that doesn't seem to be realistic. And this sign is worried about some kind of confinement or not being able to um, represent itself fairly in financial matters. Now that'll go away within about 3 to 4 days. Okay, so for people who are born like June 15th to July 15th, if you've been going through any anxiety because of fear of loss of reputation or fear of not being able to do what you want to do, take heart. That'll only go on for a couple of more days, for about 3 more days. Saturn is in the ninth house. You will face um, judgment from people in authority, that's for sure, but I don't think it'll result in any kind of penalties or confinement. Rahu and Venus are in the 10th house. This is good for overall luck of the chart. And Jupiter's in the 12th. Um, Career-wise, you'll probably be better off looking for dealing with people in uh, over long stretches of space or time, and or dealing with imports, exports, if you can, dealing with people far away from where you're currently working. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. Mars is in the 12th house, Moon is in the 12th house. So this can mean a lot of expenditure, a lot of worry connected with a relationship partner. Relationship partner seem cold or distant, again, for this sign. But again, this does give this K2 in the third house, does give this sign a lot of will, a lot of luck, and there'll be a lot of dealing with enemies from this placement. Cancer, Sun and Mercury are in the seventh house. So open enemies will be present in the chart. But again, like I said, within about 3 days, that'll pass. They'll go away. Saturn is in the eighth house. Again, this is kind of a game-changing transition between now and March 27th. You may see your entire life Um, Not necessarily flipped, but change, change direction. And it'll actually be good for you in terms of luck because you'll be more determined than ever to make a success of yourself. 10th house Lord is in the 12th, so career life isn't doing that well. Within a couple of weeks, you'll see it. Within about a month, you'll see a change in that. Jupiter's in the 11th house, good for financial gains. But relationship life, like I said, isn't that great right now. Um, the Leo, so we're on to Leo. Leo has the Arada for the 5th house in it and the Arudalagna. So essentially, those are representations of the 5th house and representations of the self. So essentially, this sign will be somewhat lucky this month because of these combinations. Mars is in the 11th house. This is considered to be the most auspicious planet for Leo rising, or the best planet for Leo rising. It should give financial gains through property, but also expenditures. Kate, who's in the 2nd house, is difficult for people to um, grasp what this sign is saying. Some of the messaging may come out a little bit garbled, but Jupiter aspects the 2nd house. So essentially, even if the communication comes out a little bit scrambled, people will think you have the authority of the divine on your side, okay, when you speak. So they'll just blame themselves, not you. Um, we're not like a lot of association with people in high places. Um, it's, a lot of focus on partnerships. You have Sun and Mercury in the 6th house, so this tends to mean governmental authorities or bosses, co-workers may not be particularly friendly right now. Saturn's in the 7th house. This is what I would call one of the kingship combinations in a chart. Taurus has it too, and Scorpio has it too. So essentially, whatever the sign says or does, people will pay attention to it and will follow through on the commands. The sun is in the 6th house. Not a bad placement. It will move to the 7th house within about before the end of the week, certainly. But I would say by Wednesday or Thursday, and you'll see a lot of focus on partnerships and also on uh, partnerships helping to defeat your enemies or defeat your adversaries. Rahu and Venus are in the 8th house. As I've said many times before, this particular sign is prone to conspiracies, prone to efforts to usurp the sign's authority. Um, this will tend to get less prominent, I would say, within about 3 to 4 months. We have to wait for Rahu to move into Aquarius, which is technically considered to be its own sign. Own sign. Planets in their own signs don't hurt the signs, but it may make him want to reevaluate some of it. It may make the person want to reevaluate some of their um, alliances or allegiances in order to get things done. But Jupiter is placed in the 10th house, very lucky combination through really the end of June. And then Jupiter enters the 11th house in the end of June, where you can see, so that's very lucky for career life. And June and I would say July through next August will be very good for triumph in conflicts. Virgo has Ketu sitting in it along with the Sri Lagna. Marginally better for um, Virgo in terms of money. Jupiter's also aspecting the 2nd house. This sign will get a lot busier this month because Mars is aspecting the 1st house. A lot of things will seem to come rapid fire. Um, and I have a prominent Virgo in my chart, and I've noticed that as well. Sun and Mercury are in the fifth house, so there's a good opportunity for financial gains and also for improved career luck. Saturn is in the sixth house, so there's this willingness to work hard for the sign. Rahu and Venus are in the seventh house, can give interesting possibilities in relationships. Uh, if you're happy where you are, then don't act on it. If you're not happy where you are, this is a good time to explore alternatives to your current relationship. I wouldn't recommend, and I think we're going to see a lot of breakups in April, in mid-April, all the way through June. Um, so let's go on to this. Jupiter's in the ninth house, um, and I think one of the things that this does, oh, one more thing about Rahu and Venus, tends to undercut faith in organizations overall. So I think you'll see people feeling like they need organizations a lot less over the next few months. And let's move on to Jupiter in the ninth house. Good for financial luck for the sign. Mars and Moon are in the 10th house. Good for career ambition, good for going after what you want. And so this is basically a good week for Virgo. But again, Rahu always makes me say to people, stick with it, pursue it, but see how long it's going to last. Okay. So I think that's an important qualifier with that Rahu Venus there in the seventh house. For a Libra, a lot more focus on work and spiritual sadhana and even digestive issues. Um, Scorpio is in the second house, so there'll be a lot more association with money. Sun and Mercury are in the third house. I'm sorry, in the fourth house, and aspected by Mars, so there'll be a lot more focus on property, enhancing property. Saturn is in the fifth house. Anything you worked really hard at that seems to be delayed is being delayed for a reason, and you'll be able to pursue that interest, I would say, within the next month. Sixth house has Rahu and Venus in it. The Lord of the first and the sixth is not a favorable placement, but it is with Rahu and it is exalted. So what does that mean for this particular sign? Well, a lot more work, just a ton more. And I think you'll see uh, people with this rising sign or this sun sign or this moon sign get to um, are ready to try new things um, creatively and also loving work a lot more than normal. Mars is in the ninth, Jupiter's in the eighth. That aspect's the second, good for financial growth, but again, it comes in spurts. And Mars and Moon are in the ninth house, very good for financial improvement and career improvement. Ketu in the 12th actually makes a person a little bit more spiritually inclined. So that's uh, really one of the positive things of Ketu, not from a material perspective, but from a financial perspective. Scorpio has the Vrinata Lagna in the first house, so this sign will be spending a lot of time by itself. Jupiter aspects the first house, good for potential relationship partners, but this sign will be a little bit shy, a little bit difficult to deal with. Um, the Upapada Lagna is in the third house, so again, there's a strong desire to meet people, a strong desire to get out and do things, but I'll be frustrated for just a little while longer. The summertime, you'll see a large increase in activity. Rahu and Venus sit in the fifth house. That's a good combination for financial success for children and also increased financial gains through one's own efforts because of Sun, Mercury, and the third house aspected by Mars. Jupiter's in the seventh house, so good financial gains, good luck through in relationships. Jupiter aspects Ketu in the Sri Lagna, so that should also be good for financial gains for Scorpio. The only flaw in this particular sign is the sign feels a little bit isolated or a little bit out of the loop. For Sagittarius, um, you have Jupiter's in the sixth house, so again, there's a lot of focus on law and lawsuits. This is the United States chart, but this will also be uh, a condition that a lot of regular Sagittarius risings have. Sun and Mercury are in the second house. That's a good combination for financial growth and financial gain. That's what's called a Dana Yoga or wealth producing combination. And it'll pass into the third house. So that doesn't mean the opportunities for wealth will go away. You'll just have to work a little bit harder for them because Sun and Mercury will be in the same sign with Saturn. Rahu and Venus are in the fourth house. This is actually a good combination for increasing spiritual life at home, also for investing, also for financial growth. Jupiter's in the sixth. We've already spoken about that a little bit, so it can make people feel a little bit unfocused or unhealthy. For Mars, Mercury, Mars, and Moon being in the seventh house, good for financial advancement, good for financial growth, but a little bit difficult for peace of mind. And K2 sits in the 10th house. It looks like a lot of the actions, or there seems to be sort of a directionless, not really directionless, excuse me. Um, a increased effort to do well at work, and they'll succeed next month over the next or next week, excuse me, actually next week. Saturn's in the third house, good for financial gains, good for overall protecting your interests. Venus and Rahu are in the fourth house. This is not a bad forecast. Venus has Rahu as its yoga karaka planet. And Capricorn is has Sun and Mercury, and in the first house, very good for unexpected financial gains, but again, still a little bit of uncertainty about the future for the sign. Uh, so we have a ninth house planet with an eighth house planet, so good for financial gains, especially from the government. But you'll actually see next month be a more, or next week be a much more successful week than this week will be. Um, Saturn is in the second house, so that tends to make investment opportunities come slowly. Venus is in the third house. This will make the sign more delicate and more charming and more affable. Jupiter's in the fifth house. It's in exchange to the Lord of the third, the lords of the third and the fifth house. So whatever the individual is looking for, um, trying to think, they'll have to ask for it directly and they'll have to work hard for it. Venus in the third house, there'd be a strong desire for luxuries or not having to put as much effort in it work. Let's see, Venus in the third house, disposited by Jupiter in the fourth house. So there should be some money coming in from family states over the next few months. Um, Ketu's in the ninth house. This isn't necessarily a bad placement, especially if Mercury's really well placed and it is in this chart. So essentially what it does is it gives the same look as the first house. So basically, whenever you see a combination like that, you know that something's going to be taken away from you, but you'll make it back within a matter of days. Okay? So this doesn't mean you won't have anything taken away from you or stolen from you, but with this combination right here going into the seventh house, you'll definitely have it back in 9 days. For Clinton, I'm sorry, for my apologies, not for Clinton, for Aquarius, I have my mind wrapped around an earlier president. For Aquarius, Saturn is in the seat of power. This indicates deposing old ways of doing things or deposing old systems. And Rahu and Venus are in the second house. Venus is a very good Raj Yoga producing planet for this particular sign. It will introduce more financial gains. Jupiter is well placed in the fourth house, so it'll give financial gains connected with property. Fifth house has a Mars Moon conjunction. Probably a good idea to address concerns or issues with the property. And finally, Ketu's in the eighth house, which will give this sign increased capacity to explore things or investigate things. And we have no other sign placements except for Sun and Mercury in the 12th house, but that's going to change before next week. Okay. So with Sun and Moon in the same sign in the first, or with Sun, excuse me, I screwed that up. With Sun in the 12th house, right now it'll soon be in the first house for Aquarius. For Pisces, I'm sorry, I keep noting out here. For Pisces, we have a Venus Rahu conjunction in the first house. Uh, so again, extraordinarily high focus on financial gains and desire for those. Mars is in the fourth house, almost a willingness to do anything to hold on to them, to be honest. Mars is in the fourth house, aspect in the seventh. So a relationship partner, even if they don't like you, they want you to hold on to your financial um, gains. And the Sun and Mercury, so we have Jupiter in the third house. That'll give good access to financial gains. Mars and Moon in the fourth house. Um, Not a bad week, but certainly not the best. Okay. And so that's about it for the signs. Saturn in the 12th house does give a heavy expenditure pattern. Sun and Mercury will be entering that sign within the next few days. So you're going to have to watch out. Pisces will have to watch out for spending patterns and excessive spending patterns. Um, so let's look at the world map. And let me see now. Okay, so here's the world map, and we still have Saturn line close to Hawaii and a sun line encompassing it. So that volcano should continue to flow for a little while. There's a Venus line going through Alaska, um, and that indicates some Venus Rahu line and indicates some exposure of ill-spent monies up there. Let's yeah. So if we're looking around here, this part of Alaska, very difficult for Mars in Gemini. Some duplicitous, some lying on the part of local government. Um, Also, I think when this Washington-Oregon line intersect with this Northern California line, both the energies of both to restrict spending. So let me just uh, if we look at you zoom out a little bit here. So you have a Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter line running straight through. Oh gosh, straight through the Midwest, essentially Wisconsin, uh, Vienna, down into, I believe that's Mississippi. I always get Mississippi and Alabama confused, and down into Central America. So this combination indicates extraordinary governmental pressure on these parts of the world. For the Jupiter line to be going through Panama, again, we know there have been some diplomatic negotiations that we're engaged in Panama right now. That's probably why the Jupiter line is reflecting down there. And there's a Saturn line running through close to Maine, but not really touching it. And along the north side. Hello.
Hi, Gary.
Yeah.
Was you sleeping?
No, I was just finishing up the recording.
Oh, when you have a chance, don't forget to just look it up. You don't have to print out anything right now.
Oh, the colors, yeah.
I just want to know, the north, the,
Okay, so I'm going to try this because I'm not sure the share continued on. So uh, if we're looking at, I'll give you the feng shui colors on next week's video for the year. So that's should be something that you should know, what are the lucky colors and what are the lucky directions. Okay, so we have a Mars line running through Canada. So this Mars is always involved in land disputes or land issues, but it's not really intersecting anything. It's really only intersecting Nova Scotia. It's coming a little close to Maine. There is a Saturn line going down through Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, um, and, and there's also a Jupiter line in Argentina, excuse me, and there's also a Jupiter line. So this usually indicates a struggle between existing systems and new systems. So we know that's definitely going on in Argentina, but I think the rest of South America is experiencing those things as well. The Jupiter line, like I said, So over the next few months, we'll probably see new negotiations. Uh, the Rahu Venus line can indicate some scandal in Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and Guyana. Okay, some governmental scandal, some exposure of things that were previously unknown. There is a Sun and Mercury line running through Greenland over into Morocco and down through Niger and Gabon. And that usually indicates some government uh, overreach or over control, and also some interference with communications. This touches Portugal, Spain, can influence England, France, Jupiter, um, and to a certain extent, yes. So there are going to be some big changes, I think, in Eastern Europe and in um, Sweden over the next few weeks, and also uh, Poland because of this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. If you go down here, if you look at Central Africa, starting with Algeria and going all the way down into Sudan and into the Congo um, and into South Africa, again, some changes or some disruptions in government, some governmental scandals in Ukraine, Finland, Turkey, Israel, and I would also say Russia and Saudi Arabia, and again a little bit down more towards Zimbabwe and southeastern Africa, maybe even hitting Madagascar. There's a Moon-Mars conjunction, so we can expect some violent activity in Russia, down through Iran, and down through, I believe that's Kuwait. I'm not sure it's Kuwait or United Arab Emirates. I apologize. Um, and these two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, are between a Mars line and a Sun line. So there's definitely some problems with governmental authority. And also, India seems to be caught in kind of a vice over here. I don't think there's anything necessarily that wrong going on in India. I just think it's a little bit testy for them. Also, a lot of people have been asking about earthquakes, volcanoes. There is a Saturn line coming down through Greece, and some people have been worried about Santorini exploding again. I don't see that happening, uh, and I hope I'm right. It's just, but there have been a series of earthquakes in this region right here. So I don't believe that's going to happen. Okay. Um, Much more likely to get violent activity like that if there's a Saturn line near Hawaii, just for um, just for um, reasons of the astrology of that part of the world. But I would expect the earthquakes to continue in Greece and also in Western Turkey near Syria. Um, the other area where there are some government issues or issues about government control are in Ladakh and Bangladesh, and also in unsurprisingly, in China and Myanmar, which used to be called Burma years ago. So that's an issue. There's a Jupiter line going up through China, So their economy may be recovering just a little bit, but there's also a Saturn line, so there's still restrictions, there's still problems in China. Vietnam looks like it's benefiting a little bit more economically. So does Borneo, and so does Indonesia, and China is currently. Uh, there's a Rahu Venus line going over Korea, North and South Korea. Um, it was recently announced there would be um, an openness to negotiating or talking with North Korea on the current administration's how far that goes. And but South Korea has been in kind of a mess over the past few weeks. And they're getting ready to impeach their president. And let's see, I haven't looked and seen whether or not they've actually had the trial yet. And Japan's a little bit frightened about its economic profile, and so is Western Australia. There's a Moon-Mars conjunction, so Australia is getting a little bit more violent than it normally is. So is Eastern Indonesia and uh, Guinea, and but most of the action seems to be confined in this section of Australia over here. And finally, we have these two Sun Mercury lines running up next to New Zealand. So again, that indicates more government attempts to control the media in New Zealand. So that's it for this week. Sorry if I noted out for a few minutes there. Sometimes I have these episodes, and I have sleep apnea. Just in the interest of full disclosure. So that means I stop breathing for like a limited amount of time during the night, and sometimes that gives me like these little episodes during the day. So it's not really um, the form I have really isn't life-threatening. It's just an annoyance, but that's why I tend to zone out at a certain time. Also, this room is extraordinarily hot, so it's something which seem to be a good thing on a snowy day like today in New England, but the room is still very, very hot, and that combination, along with natural tiredness, tends to screw things up just a little bit. So, yeah. All right. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you made it all the way through to the end. And I love you all. Uh, I would like to be making money through YouTube, obviously, but that's not the sole reason I do this. Um, I do this because I love astrology. I love looking at the world. I love seeing if we can figure out where the trends and patterns are happening. I've always been interested in the future, even before I was involved in astrology. So this is something which is sort of like a second love for me. So I do it for that reason, as well as in order to give you individual advice on your horoscopes. Again, if you want to contact me for a reading or for lessons, please do so. I'm not tough to talk with. If you find if we can't come to a mutual agreement on the readings or the lessons, no harm, no foul. I'll enjoy talking with you or communicating with you. And if we can, great. I can welcome some more students or some more clients. Okay. So I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you and have a wonderful week. Sorry for the interruptions, but my wife uh, has no way of knowing when I'm on. So that's one of the reasons we get those interruptions. Okay, so I'm going to stop this and we're going to say bye-bye. And again, remember, I do love you all. Thank you so much for watching, and namaste. Oh, the Gemini lecture last week went very well. I'm happy to report. And I think it will be available online. I'll let you know when it's available online. Okay? Thanks a lot, folks. Talk to you soon. And again, and as a matter of fact, I may start doing some lessons on this channel. It depends on the time element that I'm allowed. Okay. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye bye, everyone. Or you can do anything you put your mind to. Okay.